Hi everyone, my name is Edison. Welcome to Audio Mavens. Today we'll be taking a deeper look into how we EQ our drums. I looked at your responses in the comments below and you guys requested for a full video, and so this is part 2 of what we did last week. So get ready to EQ all the drums and make sure everything sounds balanced. Here we go. Okay, we're recording. Alright people, here we are. This is a session with drums. The drummer is a good friend of mine called Jonathan. Shout out to you. And we're going to start from the beginning. Let me just play the drums so that you can hear how they sound like right now without EQs. Alright, so right now all the EQs are flat and it sounds pretty good. The drums were recorded really well. Alright, so I'm going to solo the kick now. So it's important to note that this kick drum was recorded with a Beta 91. I'm going to increase the high end just to give it a bit more slap. Now I know some of you are thinking, oh, but I can hear the snare and the other drums and the singers in the microphone. That's okay. It's important to note that bleed will happen across all the microphones. Whether it's a singer's microphone or a drum microphone, there will be bleed. By bleed, I mean signals from singers entering into the kick mic or the drums entering into the singer's mic. So you want to take note of that. But the most important thing is that the main instrument is being recorded. What we're getting from this microphone is mostly the kick. All right? I'm going to increase the low end a bit more. And I'm going to increase to 60 Hertz. Alright, so that sounds good. Let's go on to the snare. Here we have the snare EQ. It's flat as well. This snare drum was recorded with an SM57 microphone. I'll be cutting frequencies below 100, and then I'm going to increase the high end about 6 kilohertz. Alright, that feels good to me. The most important thing is the relationship between the overheads and the snare. So this is the EQ of the overheads. Obviously the overheads are picking up the whole drum set. The relationship you're trying to figure out is whether the snare is in phase with the overheads. What I mean is the snare and the overheads should not be cancelling each other in terms of frequencies. And that's why on most digital mixers or on most DAWs, there is a phase button. So we've put the phase button on the snare. Let's try it out. Once I pressed the phase button, it felt like the snare had significantly reduced both in volume and in terms of low end frequencies. It feels like the snare has disappeared. When I press it again, the snare comes back. And so that's the relationship you want to check. You want to make sure that the snare and the overheads are not cancelling each other out. You have to repeat this process for the rack toms and the floor toms as well. All right, let's move on to our toms. So here's a tom. High tom sounds great. Let's check for phase. It's in phase. Let's try and EQ it. For this tom, I'm going to increase 200 Hz just to give it a bit more body. And I'm going to increase a bit of the top end as well. All right, that sounds good to me. Let's move on to the next one. So here we have tom 2. It sounds like it might be out of phase. Let's check it out. And indeed, it was out of phase. Once I pressed the phase button, the tom came back to life. All right, let's give it a bit of EQ. I'm going to increase about 150 Hz just to give it a bit more beef. I'm going to increase it by about 3 dB. All right, that sounds good. I'm going to increase the high end as well to about 6 kHz. Yep, that sounds good. All right, let's move on to the floor tom. All right, so here we have a floor tom. Let's check out the phase. Yep, the floor tom was out of phase with the overheads, and now it sounds much better. So for the floor tom, I like to increase the low end so that I can give it a bit more beef. I'm going to increase from about 88 Hz and below. I'm also going to increase the high end at about 6 kHz. Alright, that sounds good. Let's take a look at the drums overall and balance them all together. Alright, you can make this better by adding a reverb to your snare or to the toms. Now, I know some of you are asking, what about the overheads? How come you've not EQ'd the overheads? Well, I prefer not to, because if you do, in case you increase the high ends, you might over-exaggerate the cymbals. And if you increase the low ends, you might over-exaggerate the muddiness in the toms. And so I prefer not to EQ the overheads. Oh, and just so you know, all of this applies to live sound as well. You can apply these principles to live sound. If you have the right microphone placed in the right position and you have the right drummer, it will sound amazing. I hope you've enjoyed today's video. Please make sure to like and subscribe. And remember, I have a book on sale. It's called The Essential Sound Principles. The book will be online soon, so get ready, get excited, and thank you for watching this video. I will see you around.